The At Your Insta podcast is brought to you by Comic Town. Check them out at www.comictown.net or search for Comic Town Gaming Center on Facebook. Yes, hello, and welcome to At Your Own Step, presented by Masterpiece Theater. My name is Morgan, and I'm here with Mike.
Indubitably.
And Dave.
Yes.
And we have quite the high-class episode for you guys this week. No, just kidding. All right. I don't know how long I could actually keep doing that poorly.
But I was ready to go.
I'm sorry.
Peasant scum.
We have another fun and exciting episode for you guys this week of At Your End Step. We wanted to have a little bit of a fun with the masterpieces kind of being announced this week. I think that has obviously a lot of people excited, but we'll talk more about that here in the community segment. And then we have obviously a pretty light competitive segment. We did go to a GP this weekend, but it was a limited one, so our stories from it will be somewhat limited as well. But we'll cover those during the competitive segment.
Wow, slow clap for you there, bud.
And then we have a question of the week and our typical wrap up stuff and everything like that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about these masterpieces. So on Monday, Masterpiece Monday, as it were, Mark Rosewater's article basically talked about what they're going to be doing with future sets of Magic the Gathering. Basically, is they're going to have these Masterpiece collections. Basically, they names and whatever they're called and everything like that could be changed, but basically they're going to have these special rarities, past. Mythic rare, basically, or foil mythic rare, or something like that. Some very large and highly unlikely, rarity. Much like the expeditions, and from set to set they'll vary on what they actually are. But for Kaladesh, they are artifacts, and they are basically presented as, at least in Kaladesh specifically, the Inventors' Fair inventions. So you have things like, the swords showing up, sword of, we have Light and Shadow, Fire and Ice, and Feast and Famine in this set, as being these very, the beautiful artworks. They have custom frames, very ornate, very high detailed, and they even have like a specialty foiling process. So this isn't the from the vault foiling, first and foremost, which is very important. No. They've already confirmed that it is not. As far as that goes. So, but there's going to be 54 of these overall. 30 of them are in Kaladesh?
Yeah, 30 in Kaladesh, I think 24 then in Aether Revolt.
Yes, correct. Since Aether Revolt is technically a smaller set, but it is more than the Expedition, so there are more of them than there were Expeditions, which is...
But that's not to say these numbers are permanent for each set.
Correct, yeah. They're going to, fluctuate, and they won't always be artifacts. They will have some resonance with the the flavor of the set. So I imagine that when we go to Amonkhet, I can see them being like
30 copies of Desert,
tomb treasures and things like that, which is actually pretty wide-reaching when you think about it.
Foil Cyclopean Mummy.
Yeah, that's it.
It's Desert, it's Oasis, it's Camel.
Yeah, very very true. But
Aladdin's lamp.
Yeah, there could definitely be some exciting things that come down. The pipeline basically, but all of these look amazing, and there are some ones that are very very expensive that you could open up in your pack, and there are definitely some clunkers for sure. But I think all of them are at least going to be sought after for pimping out EDH decks and stuff like that. In all honesty, most of them, not all of them, are playable. I think Static Orb is the least thing that
Walker is the worst. I think Hangerback Walker is the worst.
So it doesn't have great implications, but I still think that card is more playable than Static Orb.
It's seen play in Modern Affinity.
Yeah.
At times. So
Yeah,
it's not completely.
I mean,
it's not
I
super
guess.
popular, but
Static Orb is probably the worst one.
yeah,
That was sweet back
I
in the
humbly
day.
disagree,
Sure.
but it's fine.
Anyway, I mean, even if you open a crappy one, it's still good.
Yeah, I think like yeah, you mentioned the artwork already. Like the fact that they have like they said they're going to do like the sort of unique foiling process that and borders that represent the plane that they're on makes this like look really sweet. Like these are like so like this gold metal like shaping the border because we're on Kaladesh and Adventures. And, I'm pretty excited to see where that could go because like ostensibly, like you literally can find like an artwork that like it seems like they're crafting this lovingly for players, and that's man. When you find the one that resonates with you and you just look at it, you're like, did you see that? What GP was it? Is it GP?
It's Dallas Fort Worth.
Has a
Mox Opal as one of the ones
playmat?
you can get.
Oh my gosh.
That playmat's going to be fairly coveted. In all honesty, like if you're an Affinity player, I could see you wanting that real bad. I could see you wanting the Mox Opals real bad as well. Those things are quite nice. Very, very pretty. But yeah, I mean, this is good for a lot of different reasons. Obviously, it builds in value to your packs, which is nice. It also means that this set's going to be opened like a lot. So these the other cards from the set are going to be cheap because there's going to be a ton of them. Which is always nice to see for the standard player. And I think that this is one way of Wizards making standard cheap, which it kind of has to, in all honesty, with it rotating quicker than it used to and new sets being shoved in faster than typical. I think you have to find a way to decrease the overall price of playing standard.
Yeah, we'll just throw out that those $60 Chandras that we talked about last week. Maybe you didn't hear it because the quality was a little not really up to our standards. But anyway, we talked about the price of the pre-order of Chandra, and I'm going to guess it's probably not going to stay where it is right now. So you can probably expect that to drop once the set starts getting open.
Right. I mean, you could have expected it to drop.
In any case, yeah.
Yeah,
now you know
either
it will,
way.
yeah.
But I mean, like now it's probably going to drop a little bit further than what you might have thought. I mean, you can even see some of this reflected in some of the Oath of the Gatewatch cards. If you want to take a look at a recent price history of things being affected by having high priced cards in a set. But there are some cards that even with the massive printings are still pretty good. Like Gideons are still pretty expensive because they're prevalent in a lot of standard decks. So, but even that, I imagine Gideon probably would be closer to $30 rather than around the 20 that it sits at right now. So,
and we're passing the savings on to you,
right? Which is, it is fairly exciting. Chandra obviously is a card that has been getting a lot of press, being very powerful, having 4 abilities. A lot of people are pretty excited about it, so much so that they did want to buy it for $60 pretty consistently. So hopefully with this being the case, then maybe you open up standard 2 players wanting to play that card and not wanting to have to take out a second mortgage to do so. So,
yeah, I would heavily suggest if you do have premium Star City. Chase Andres actually had a special article today because his first finance article for Kaladesh came out the day that Master. Just if you ever think that he has like insider information, this week should tell you no, that guy doesn't. Yeah. But like he talked about how like he tried to break down the math a little bit into how like it actually affects like pack prices and what it causes vendors to do. And how it should affect prices, and he predicts price drops of like roughly 20% across the board. Which you can't hold that to every card. If you come back and say something like, "Well, Chandra only dropped $5," and I'm like, "All right, well, I don't know what to say, bud." But yeah, hopefully it does mean good things. And also, like I've said before, what was great about Expeditions because like people talk about play, integrity of the game, and we have as well. The idea of like if someone strip mined you at a large event, you would feel very upset. But the play experience, especially at the casual level or the local store level, of like opening one of these. It's such a positive interaction for the players and the player base. When someone opened Expedition during like draft night or something like on FNMs, like everyone freaked out. People were like high-fiving people or like, oh man, like you would get people like trying to figure out the numbers and how much they should buy to get to the next Excuse me. Wow, it just died. The next box that has like an expedition in it, like it creates like memories that cause people to buy more packs and to play the game longer. So I like everything about this. Plus, maybe I'll open some sweet cards. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
Could be me. Why not me?
Basically, though, what this does is we now have a new rarity in Magic for the foreseeable future, which you really break it down. That's what it is.
So okay, that's. I disagree. I mean, so if you're going to argue that this is a new rarity, then you're also arguing that foil mythic is a new rarity. It doesn't affect. It's different because it doesn't affect ability to play the game.
Sure.
If there was a new rarity that affected the ability to play the game,
Yeah,
then I would 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
But
these
this
are-
doesn't affect your ability to play the game, and may in fact make it easier to play the game. So I will disagree with you on that. It does not create a new rarity,
Okay. Good.
in my opinion.
Yeah, if these were standard, legal, and that was the only way to obtain them, then
Yeah,
that would be not
Mana
good.
Crypt is now legal and standard, but you can only play the invention version.
Correct.
Well, then
That would be
The game is
awful.
done. The game is done.
That would be awful. Yeah. Yeah, let's hope that never happens. We don't want like a weird like Yu-Gi-Oh sort of
Yeah,
situation to
yeah.
devolve into our game. I mean, they could do it. We're going to an Egypt world, so they can slide in a whole bunch of
Pieces of Exodia.
yeah. They could do it, man. Just saying.
Gosh. So like, okay. Quick aside here. Yu-Gi-Oh was a kid, right?
Yeah,
And then
I think
he touched an Egyptian puzzle box and became an adult while he played card games.
sure.
What's the subtext
Is that like
there?
some messed up version of Big?
Like I don't want to open the card in Magic that I'm like, hey, look at me, and then like I play the card in a game of Magic and suddenly I'm 20 years older. Like it's just like, I look like my dad now. That's
Yeah. I really don't
cool.
know.
When you lose the game, you go back to being yourself.
I really don't know what Yu-Gi-Oh is actually all about.
All I know is that there was a kid and he wore a little pyramid puzzle box around his neck, and he was a kid except for when he was playing the card game, he was an adult.
So it's like Shazam, only with cards.
So it's like Shazam and Big like mashed together.
Oh man,
This is like the sweetest movie ever.
I know you said Shazam, but now I'm thinking Kazam, and that also fits with our Egyptian world. So if we're really lucky, we'll get Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Shaquille O'Neal's as a genie.
He could be the new Planeswalker. Kazam, ruiner of careers.
Oh man! All right.
Okay.
Sorry about that, everybody.
No, there's no reason.
That was amazing.
There's no reason to be sorry about that. No, it's all great. So spoilers have obviously continued to come out as well. We're very close to our Palooza. That'll be next week if everything goes smoothly and everything like that. But
Gonna have to rest up for that one.
Yeah, I mean,
they
those-
usually run pretty long.
those are rough. And but we did get our fourth Planeswalker, so we got we got Dovin Bond as being the fourth Planeswalker to rend out this set. Obviously, not having a Origins type or a core set type set really limits the amount of Planeswalkers they can introduce throughout the year. So I imagine that we could see a move up in the number of Planeswalkers in each set. So, like, instead of having 3 and 2, we could be having 4 and 3.
It's interesting to point back to things like the inventions as well. So when you have a large set and then you put 4 Planeswalkers at Mythic, like you do have the danger of then having multiple like Planeswalkers be tier 1 playable, and then like now the fact that you have so many Mythic slots being used, people need to open the set more. So the inventions can also be a subtle way of letting you know that like, yeah, you might get more Planeswalkers. Because like, in core sets, the difference was A, the sets were smaller, and B, up until recently, they also included reprints.
Yeah.
So like it wasn't the only way to get a hold of the card. So subtle things to have you open more packs, but it gives them more space to put things in Mythic slots that they may not normally put things in Myth to.
Very true.
That sentence didn't make any sense at the end. Ignore it. Yeah, I literally just started like muttering like boop. Started scatting for some reason.
Interesting. We went to a freeform jazz version of our podcast.
Sorry, Dylan Bond looks like a jazz guy.
Maybe. I wonder. I'm sure the jazz on Kaladesh is pretty hip.
Oh my god.
It's probably played by robots. So, but see, so that's contradictory though, right? Because there's no way a robot can play jazz. It's too illogical.
I really want a servo jug band to happen, but they don't have lungs.
they don't.
They just sit there and put
It'd be
their
like
mouthpieces.
digital, like it's like a digital version.
digital jug band.
Yeah. that sounds like that's about the most hipster thing I think I've ever heard of. Come down to the bar and watch my new sweet digital jug band perform.
What are they called?
I have no idea.
Name it now.
I can't think of it. I don't know, man. That's really hard. I'm not that clever. Do you want to talk about Dovin Bond?
Before we talk about the card,
Okay.
can you explain why the Vidalkin in this set has 6 fingers? Has that explained?
That was explained in the world building panel or the initial announcement panel. Basically, that's the reason they have that is because it basically allows them to have an advantage in like the detailed work that happens in Kaladesh.
I was gonna say, does it help them craft metal?
Remember,
better?
normally Vidalkins would have a second set of arms on other planes, and that's why they're so good at this. Like on Mirrodin, that's the whole point. Their technical prowess comes from their precision with all of their limbs. But I don't know if you know this, but in Indian culture, a number of their deities specifically have 4 arms. And they said in the world building panel that they weren't going to do any sort of appropriation that way. And they really thought ahead on that. So this is why your Vidalkin has 2 arms with 6 fingers.
Correct. Okay.
I
didn't know that was a thing. I just noticed it in the
art.
art.
Dovin Bond is part of the hierarchy, the royalty, if you will, and they've been trying to keep their blood pure. And they have polyploidy and a really bad case of sickle cell anemia.
No, but yeah, that was kind of explained. It was an intentional thing for sure to basically further kind of flesh out what the Vidalkins are, why they're so capable on this plane.
So this wasn't like an Olivia Voldaren art mess up.
No.
No, like there's no extra eye. Don't even pretend that there's like. Oh gosh! I will say his extra finger on that hand that's showing up there does look like it's like just like really adventurous. Like it's about to leave the body. It's like so long, guys.
Like when they reach a certain age, the pinky falls off.
It's got a little hat and a little stick with a bag on it. It's gonna make its own way in the world. I'll be the greatest finger inventor you'll ever see. What are we doing today?
I don't know.
I mean, we don't have a lot to talk about competitive,
we
need to
said Dovin Bond, his name, like 5 minutes ago, and still haven't read the card. Morgan, read the card.
Okay, Dovin Bond. It's 2 generic white and blue for a 3 loyalty planeswalker. And it has a 3 ability, so it has a +1. It says until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gets -3, -0, and its activated abilities can't be activated. Then it has a -1. It says you gain 2 life and draw a card. And then it has a -7. When you get it says you get an emblem with your opponents can't untap more than 2 permanents during their untap steps. So, Dovin Bond is a static orb.
The first comment on Mythic Spoiler says every time you use -1, he kills those cute artifact foxes. Don't use it. -1, gain 2 life, draw a card. He strangles a filigree familiar to death.
That's
if you ever saw the South Park episodes where they had like soda pop cans of like stem cells, it was like the joke, right? That's what this is. It's like a filigree elemental.
Yeah, that's
refreshing.
How do you make a villain in blue-white? You have him drink the inside of robot foxes.
Yeah, that actually is it's pretty horrifying now.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm pretty scared. So are you guys disappointed that we don't get Tezzeret until likely the next set?
Yeah, I'm pretty sad. I was hoping he'd be here, but it's all right.
No,
we will
fine.
get him. We will get him. I think I will say as a planeswalker, this card is it's like somewhere in the middle of what we like. It certainly looks like somebody said, "Okay, Jace Architect of Thought was too good, so let's cut it in half." But I will say his +1 is pretty unique. The -3, I don't know if you are familiar with cards that are still going to be in Standard, but man, does this card say that it's pretty good against a certain 3/3 that can flicker things.
Oh yeah, Mr. Displacer is not going to be doing much displacing.
Yeah, but it's also interesting against it's the way it's worded. Activated abilities can't be activated, so like it's good against like any mana dork as well.
Yeah, none of those that we have. In
Well, we
Standard.
have some of the 2-drops that might see play.
Oh, okay.
But
Deathcap Cultivator.
We have Deathcap Cultivator. We still have the Ally too.
Beast Color Savant.
Yeah. So just saying, I think that is an ability that gets overlooked sometimes. I mean, you even have like Pia Nalar, who will now be in the format as a 3-drop that might be able to shut off. So I think that second part of the text may become more relevant as the format continues to open up. We have a lot of activated abilities in this format.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even just the -3, it's very close to Jay's Telepath Unbound.
-1.
No, the +1 ability that gives the creature -3, -0.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah,
in
you're
addition to shutting off the activated ability. So, I mean, that in itself, it's like pretty decent at protecting itself. And then if you're able to, clear the board, then you can start -1ing and just drawing cards and getting advantage that way. So, I don't know how much you'll actually be getting the ultimate off on this guy, but it seems okay.
I don't also know, like I'd have to see a board state where that ultimate is like the most devastating thing in the world, because once you've gotten to 7 loyalty, like board states will progress to the point where you have to do a little bit of work to make that even good. Now it's very powerful, but it does not feel like I feel like for an ultimate on a card like this where its abilities are sort of in the middle of power level, it just seems like an underwhelming ultimate. But
I mean, I think you could look at this card and just like imagine that the -7 doesn't even exist, and it's still pretty good.
Yeah, I definitely think like this is the kind of card that people always like underrate the -1, and if you have any sort of curve where you can already defend it, and you can just immediately play this and just like literally say like, okay, I'm going to gain 6 life and draw 3 cards in the next 3 turns, kind of like how people used to treat like Baby Jace, where it's like I'm just going to draw a couple cards and let it die.
Yep.
There's a lot of value here.
Yeah, and then that makes multiples okay. You could just play one, minus it all the way down, and then when it dies, you can just play the other one, minus it again.
And people talked about like how like one of the reasons that supposedly Narset would have been good is when she had 6 loyalty is because it represented X amount of life. Well, he doesn't have a ton of loyalty, but he does also have real life plus loyalty. So yeah, for a 4-mana stabilizer, it can also just like represent like a gain of anywhere between like 5 and even 10 life depending on the board if they need to get this off of it. So
yeah. No, that's true. I think he's a good sort of middle of the road planeswalker. I mean, out of the blue white walkers that we've had previously, he doesn't replace like Venser in my heart.
Oh well, Venser doesn't have a heart.
Yeah,
so
but not his
Karn
heart.
has it.
My heart. Yeah, Karn. That's correct. Karn done took it to make himself feel better.
I mean,
I'm not saying that Venser is like better, but I just like Venser more.
He's definitely not better. He's dead now.
It's true.
Going back to the lack of a heart.
Yeah, correct. Accurate. And Narset was kind of a stinker when it kind of broke down. So we'll see what happens with Mr. Dovin if this is definitely a card that you would see in sort of a control type strategy. It feels so. We'll see if that suddenly becomes viable in this brand new standard that we'll be getting here soon. So
you almost said that reverently. Just the brand new standard that's coming down the road.
It's almost here.
I can see children playing. They're not playing with Collected Company.
No, they aren't. Thank God.
No companies being collected.
No Drumicas being commanded.
Companded?
Commanded. And again, we are going to get the full spoiler on Friday. So if there is anything that is potentially exciting, it'll be coming tomorrow. Or do you think there's going to be any like last minute big reveals or anything like that?
I don't think so.
I think we're missing a couple key energy cards if they want energy to be a deck. So I wouldn't be surprised if you got a subtle, really efficient energy maker. I know we got the green spell that lets you like Lay of the Land that also gets 2 energy, which in the right deck might be a thing. But I think you need 1 or 2 more energy enablers to see a real energy deck. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a really solid uncommon hanging out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, usually near the end, I guess of the second week, it's always just a dump of commons and uncommons that we haven't seen. Mostly limited fodder, but sometimes there's some sweet
the diamond in the rough.
Yeah, diamond in the rough, sure.
I want to check on one thing here real quick. Hopefully I can find the name and number crunch, but I'm trying to think of like some interesting things that they could shove in there.
I thought I saw Creeping Corrosion was still technically possible based on number crunch as of last week. As of yesterday, I saw it was still available based on the numbers and the C's, but beyond that, I haven't seen anything too crazy listed on those number crunches. Now, granted, Morgan, I know you follow it more than I do. The number crunch is fun just because people really spend a lot of time trying to plug in like names that make sense alphabetically into the set number slots. So
right, I was trying to see if if they could still do like theoretically Hangerback Walker.
I highly doubt that.
I don't think they would, just because it's one of the inventions.
Yeah, but so are all the 4 of the Gear Hulks. Like,
Yeah.
all 5 of the Gear Hulks.
Well,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
but those are
Rosewater
like-
specifically said there would be one cycle of cards that were in
Yeah.
the set still. So like we had Battlelands before and the Gear Hulks now. So
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's my reasoning.
Yeah, you're probably right, but
Now, I mean, it would fit flavorfully. Maybe it'll be in the next set, possibly. but I doubt it.
I just doubt it.
Yeah.
It was Hangerback had a really good life cycle in Standard, but there were times where it was close to too powerful. So I don't know if I guess not too powerful, but like it was definitely highly represented. I don't know if they'd bring it back again. Especially when people like, granted they don't know this, I guess in the past, but complaining about standard diversity. Like the last thing we need is a powerful standard reprint from the most recent standards format.
sure. No, that's probably very true, but I don't know. I doubt we'll get anything like too exciting, but it seems really funny that we're like one of the most technically like Hangerback Walker is probably one of the most iconic cards that we actually have had from Kaladesh.
Well, yeah.
So it's kind of weird to see it gone.
because the set isn't even
True, but I couldn't find the name of number crunch, so I'm probably just wrong anyway.
In that case, like I hope Whirler Rogue's back too.
yeah, no, we got like
The 5-mana 0/3 that makes
yeah, we got the fake Whirler Rogue. Sorry.
Dave, please put it back in cube. The invitational's coming. Mike needs it. I won both my invitational drafts. That's actually not true. I guess the first one, the second draft didn't have it. It was red green. Sorry, you guys don't want to hear about my past championships. Let's go ahead and move on, Morgan.
All right. So there were some silly Twitter outrage today. Some real like the amount of like angry people that you can stir on Twitter for no reason is astounding sometimes. So this was surrounding the Worlds slots for 2017. So basically, he was queued, and I guess people were upset that BBD wasn't queued for the next World Championship, even though this was announced during Sydney. And apparently, people are just when you announce something in Australia, it does take a while to actually travel.
It hasn't made its way to the States yet.
So
Wow.
it hit today apparently that BBD was going to queue.
They are in the future over there. So.
Yeah, apparently, but it just didn't make any. It didn't even matter. I can't. We're just catching up to their news apparently. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this at the time. So if you didn't know, the World Champion is no longer auto queued for the next Worlds, and they also took away the GP Master slot, so we won't have that anymore. Both of which BBD was this past year.
So the argument is though that so he won Worlds, meaning he's got plenty of pro points to get a head start for the next season. So now, granted, he'll definitely have to grind more than he thought he was going to have to grind, and that's unfortunate. But it didn't help. I will say, while I'm firmly it's sad that it's happening to BBD because I'm really happy for that guy. But they did announce this change to literally no uproar when it happened. It doesn't help that Helene last week tweeted that he is qualified, and when someone questioned it by linking to the article she is now linking to today, she said, no, that doesn't take effect till next year. Of course, next year is the year that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So now, granted, she answers a lot of questions. Slip-ups are going to happen. It's not a good look.
It was awkward.
But yeah, I don't know. The whole discussion that was also happening today about the getting rid of slots like Draft Master or Constructed Master because it cuts off people with more pro points, and the argument that that was going on between even PV and BBD over results oriented thinking in a game that literally begs you to have consistent high finishes to be able to do anything. Well, I mean, you didn't have as many pro points as people. It's well, you won GP Master though by going to every GP and finishing in these what are you talking about? The semantics of it were just ridiculous. So I honestly I don't know how much time we should spend on this. It was a garbage argument. But when there are times when we've on this cast really supported pros being outraged, we understood why. This one, literally weeks and weeks ago, this information was out.
Yeah.
You guys just sound dumb.
Yeah, it did not make any sense. I was like, why are people upset about this? This was news. This is old news.
Yeah, there was also an argument out there. It's well, do you want, do you want cool storylines or do you just want the 24 best players? It's like, why not both?
Yeah, why not both?
Yeah,
We don't have to do all storylines, but
And
I like the mix.
There are some legitimate questions like why is the Magic Online champion still getting a queue if the world champion isn't getting a queue?
well, because they need someone to. They need the
need someone
dead
to
money.
lose.
They need the dead money in the tournament.
Oh my gosh! Well, I mean, at this point, just invite it. I was going to say something really mean, but that's not fair to Nears Norlander. So, but in all honesty, they said that they are reevaluating that, but they had already guaranteed a slot via their season promotional material on Moto that would not allow them to change that. So, I would assume that the next slot that goes out the window is that one as well. And to be frank, that's the one that makes the most sense to go because that slot has historically just not been represented well. It's been rough for a lot of players.
And not to say that winning Mox is an easy feat or anything like that. It is very hard, very difficult. And I heard I saw a lot of tweets saying as much to that. But if you're going to take away some of the in paper qualifications that you had, then it makes sense to maybe remove this. Now, by removing it though, you do lose that advertising piece for Magic Online.
If they're ever going to truly reevaluate Magic Online and fix it, they have to sort of sever those connections to in-world invites. So when the inevitable large amount of downtime comes in for putting in a playable piece of software, people won't lose their minds. That's at least how I view it. But I definitely will say that while I agree the MOCS is a very difficult tournament in general, the having to actually travel to all of these events across different continents and different countries to queue. That's an element that Moto does not take into account in any fashion. There's no stamina part of it beyond you having to be active throughout a tournament. So,
yeah, but it's not like you necessarily. Going to this tournament has more fulfillment than just us getting points to qualify. You also get prize payout.
Well, yeah, I mean,
you don't necessarily
get prize payout too. So
yeah, but that doesn't necessarily always transfer into direct dollars.
Does that make a difference?
But you say travel.
I'm saying there's a stamina element to gameplay when you have to travel. I'm not talking about prizes. I'm talking about the fact that BBD is traveling to a different country or continent almost every weekend to try and capture the slot. Whereas the MOCS, you qualify and you play in your in your MOCS and you don't leave home. And I think the taxing element of actually having to go around the world and prepare for the tournaments, I think it's a different beast. I don't.
I think they both take different kinds of stamina, but sure, the MO, qualifying for an MO, the actual MOC tournaments could take multiple different tournaments, and they could be very large and very difficult tournaments to navigate, where you don't leave your home for 10+ hours, or are up at 3:00 in the morning, depending on where you live, to actually qualify.
Sure, there's sacrifices on both ends, but
yeah,
I view one as lesser.
And sure,
sorry everybody.
I mean,
that's
I'm being
fine. Horrifically offensive right now, and I probably am, but
I don't have any idea of what it takes to actually qualify or win MOCS. So
well, see what happens is you will have to want to be the very best, the best that there ever was.
Sure.
You got to catch all the cards.
And probably just enough for your constructed deck.
No, you got to catch them all. Did you not get what I was doing?
No, I knew exactly what you were doing.
But
I wasn't going to feed into it. I don't want to acknowledge it.
Dun 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 dun.
Anyway,
for what it's worth, I like that the world champ doesn't auto queue for the next one.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are that upset about it.
I think this is the last thing I'll say about it. But when Shahar ran it back the second time, it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth because I feel like he didn't really deserve to be there. He didn't really do anything that year to really queue for it, other than being the previous world champ.
Yeah. And you, in all honesty, what other world championships or Super Bowls or the World Series, you just does the winning team just auto queue for the next time? Cool. We're good. It just doesn't happen.
It's qualification systems that are based off of world rankings. That actually does.
All right. Anyway.
Golf and tennis, where your invitations to tournaments is based off your ranking and standing from the season before, you actually do get invites to tournaments because of that.
Gotcha.
So there is a system for that, but
yeah, but it's golf and tennis, and who cares?
Well, seeing as our open system most closely mirrors something like golf, I think it's actually worth mentioning. But
sure, but that's what Star City Games is open series. Is that we're referencing?
I mean, same with we literally have a point system.
Sure.
Like,
So-
we literally have a pro point system. So, I'm just saying. To call it, like, ludicrous is like, I'm just being really contrarian today. How's that sound?
pretty difficult, actually.
That's exactly what it is.
Anyway, we're going to move into our competitive segment. Before we do that, we do again want to give a shout out to our lovely sponsors, Comic Town. They're running a few constructed events over the weekend. So the first one's actually going to be on Saturday. It's going to be a modern PPTQ with Eternal Masters product being awarded as prizes to the top 8. Entry is $20 and it has a 10 a.m. start time. So they open at 9 a.m. typically for to register, fill out your deck list and everything like that. And then on Sunday, there's going to be a standard tournament, and it is a Star City Games IQ. It's going to be $30 entry, and then again the start time is 10 a.m. So you can try to queue for the RPTQ on on Saturday, and play standard on Saturday.
Hey, if you are someone who's going to be like, he was like already doing the longing like stare at your collected companies.
You're just like doing the Wolverine picture stare.
Then Sunday is definitely for you. I know I will be there on Saturday though. Morgan, you're coming.
That is the plan. Catherine is doing things with her bridesmaids, I believe. So I'm gonna snap off a Magic tournament.
There you go. All right, I like it. So. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I don't know what I'm going to play. I am strongly considering going back to Gift Strong just to play a fun deck for a tournament.
So our competitive segment's a little bit lacking. So we can talk a little modern. I mean, that's kind of the format du jour. Since we have
poor Dave.
We have the Opens modern this weekend as well.
Orlando, yes.
Yes. So
I just want to say I saw multiple people from Team Card Hoarder. I guess maybe I shouldn't say it because it's posted somewhere on Facebook, but.
Don't say it then.
I don't know what you're talking about.
All right. They were looking for an interesting card. That's all I'm going to say.
Fair enough.
And I was really excited when I saw it. I won't say it.
That's very exciting, but yeah, don't blow their cover.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't want to get yelled at for anything.
To the 3 people that listen to this that actually get an advantage out of it, but, we don't want to burn any bridges.
That's fair.
You can tell us off air, though. We'll be excited for you.
I will say this, Mike. If you do play Gift Strong, you can play your sweet new signed Urza's Power Plants?
Yeah, we got to
Power Plants. Yeah.
It was Power Plants. Yeah, Mark Teeden was at GP Louisville. Got some sweet signatures. Actually, the best signature I got all weekend was we posted this on Twitter. If you haven't seen it, go take a look at it. So Howard Lyon was there. He did Sign in Blood, and then had him sign cards. And he definitely made Sign in Blood look like it was signed in blood with a pool of blood on the signature. Like, it is gorgeous. It is my favorite signature that I have anything in the battle box, and I'm so happy it happened. He was a great guy.
Yeah,
he had like was hiding art around the room, and then like doing scavenger hunts for them. And one of our friends, Morgan, not this Morgan, sorry Morgan, other Morgan.
Yeah, other Morgan.
Found a piece. That was sweet.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Anyway, so modern over the weekend. A few places are firing it off. What do we? I see. I'm kind of torn. I have access to a few different decks. I've actually, if my cards come in the mail, then I will have most of Boggles, and then I have access to Titan Breach, and then I have Eldrazi-Tron. And I'm trying to figure out what to play. I'm kind of lost. The last deck that I've played was Eldrazi-Tron, and I did top 4 with that. It was a lot of fun. But I'm kind of tempted to play Boggles because I feel like in the local area, no one really plans for the Boggles.
You're a bad person.
I don't care.
None of those decks. Also, none of those decks have Scalding Tarn in them, so I'm not interested.
Yeah, whatever, man. I'm not interested in your $90 fetch land either. So
they weren't $90 when I got them.
Well, I didn't play around then. All right.
I don't know. Out of those 3 decks, I would have to assume like our local meta is still a little strange. It's been a little bit less Tron recently. We have been showing them what for. I know a friend of the show reached out to me to tell me that we had successfully got him off that, but all we did was get him on the Grishel brand. So I don't think we accomplished anything.
We've taught many lessons over the past couple months.
But I know that like personally, like Death Shadow is probably still the right choice, and I'd have to assume the more aggressive deck is the right choice for you. And honestly, it might be Boggles.
We'll see. We'll see if the cards show up. It's discount Boggles, though, so I have to play 3 different green-white lands because I do not want to buy Horizon Canopies.
All I can think is the Discount Drug Mart theme song in my head. The Discount Boggle deck saves you the run around.
So I think Brushland is like the best replacement because it does the same thing except it doesn't draw you a card, but it also cannot do you damage sometimes. So whatever.
You're playing Sunpetal Grove?
I own Sunpetal Grove, so that would be the natural thing because I don't have to buy anything else. And like Brushlands are like $10.
$15,
Yeah.
Way to go, Bant Eldrazi.
Yeah, thanks for that.
The only thing I will say is that people in our meta do like their Juns and their Abzans, and Abzan had a good showing at Worlds and has been creeping up. And man, if I'm playing Boggles, I don't want to see Abzan. Like,
yeah,
man, Liliana and Lingering Souls sounds terrible. Better hope you have Trample and some protection.
So yeah, that of course is the worry, is the concern. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, though, we know how Modern works. You know,
right.
I played Death Shadow the last PPTQ. You know, and again, I've played it locally because of things like Tron, and I haven't played Tron in either of the last 2 PPTQs I played in. So I don't know what is the right answer there.
Yeah, it's kind of just whatever you want to do.
Yeah, and that's why I'm kind of thinking about like just firing off. Like I've been collecting all these foils for Giftstron as well. I just want to play it.
Yeah.
So
for old time's sake,
just fire off some decks that might be poorly positioned for the meta and see what happens.
Yeah, or I can play against Tron 3 times and whatever.
Well, yeah.
So.
I mean, like I can play against Jun 3 times with Boggles and be like, well, this is dumb. I did dumb today.
So I don't know. I'm excited to play some more Modern though.
If my cards don't come, then I'm probably just going to play Eldrazi Tron.
Seems right.
Because it's the deck that I have the most experience with, and while Red-Green Breach does seem like it's fun, I feel like it's not the best in the meta right now. So, Eldrazi Tron just gets people. I mean, turn 1 Chalice for 0. I'm not a good man. I'm not a good person. I know that. So that's fine. I'm okay with all these things. Plus, Chalice is still really good against Death Shadow, and if there's going to be that,
so you're saying I
should
play Giftstron. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
So Mike, you mentioned running it back. I know Ryan Overturf posted a Jeskai Delver list today with spell callers. I was like, that could get me to sleeve up some Delvers again, maybe, possibly. If I were playing, I would consider that deck, or I would consider something with Pyromancer Ascension in it. I'm not going to say what. We'll just say it'll have that card in it.
We know that you're going to go back to Delver as soon as Kaladesh comes out because you get that new fast land.
Yeah,
you gotta test that bad boy out.
Yeah,
it's like getting a new hot rod in your deck.
It's something like make out point. Like that's what that land is.
Yeah,
it's absolutely Delver make out point.
Yeah.
Dave's going to take his Delvers and go cruising down the vista,
and never look back until he 03's a tournament and goes, I've never played this deck again.
I go 0-X against Jund.
Until his dad shows up because no son of his is going to go macking in a car with a Delver of Secrets.
Yeah.
Jeez, it's a school night, Dave. This is the 1950s.
But I'm pretty excited. I've been slowly trying to collect a rather different assortment of modern decks so that I can, play what I want to play when I want to play it.
Play what you want to play.
And some you just need to have one unfair deck, one sort of mid-range deck, and then one sort of combo deck. And I'm kind of leaning branching in between all of those. So we'll see what happens, but I could be boggling some minds this weekend.
Get out.
All right. So let's move on. Let's talk about the tournaments that happened the weekend. So we had 2 GPs. We had GP Louisville and GP Kyoto that happened. Let's talk about Louisville because that's what the bulk of this segment's going to be. We all went and attended it and had teams. And Mike and I were on the same team, and Dave was not on our team. Dave was on a team with 2 other people.
I wasn't invited, so. No, just kidding. I was actually invited onto another team before you guys were officially on a team, I think.
To be fair, the team that we played with has been a team that we've had.
I already knew that. I already knew that was going to be a thing. So
I'm just waiting for Morgan to say he's done with he's going rogue from my wife and I. We held him back this weekend.
Yeah, actually, I had a pretty decent weekend. Me personally,
Team not so much.
team less though, but
Hey, you guys had a sweet round one.
yeah, I mean, like that's the highlight of this weekend is our round one story. So obviously, the team was Mike, me, and Mike's wife, Katie.
And she was, if you didn't make it through the car cast last week, I apologize. She was actually on it, though. She was in the vehicle with us.
Yeah, she was in the car. And, round one hasn't started yet. We're having friendly banter, and it's just like, there's no... Dave, I think you brought this up. Like, hey, there's no buys this tournament. You could get, like, paired against, some heavyweights, some big names. And that's exactly what happened to our team. So we were paired against... the world champions team, the newly minted world champions team. So it was Shaheen Sarani, BBD, Brian Bronduin, and then Craig Wesco. Oh man, what a great way to start a tournament.
So I look at the pairings on my phone. I was like, Sarani, Bronduin, Wesco. Oh no! Oh my god! And Morgan's like, really? And my wife's like, what's that mean?
Because this is Katie's first GP.
Yeah. She has never played anything above an F&M before. So like, she's like, okay, like so like we go over to our seats and she goes to sit down. I'm like, don't sit down yet. I'm like, don't take any of your stuff out yet. She's like, why? And I'm like, and like as she goes, why? We really go, feature matches for round one, table blank. Yeah, Sarani, Bronduin, Wesco, Carl, Kenny, Hassenstab.
That was great because. I didn't know what your pairings were, and I was going to see my pairings, and then I just heard that, and I just started laughing out loud. I was just like, "That's awesome!"
So I look at my wife, and I'm like, "She's like, what does this mean? What does this mean?" And I'm like, "We're just playing against the world champion," and she's like, "What?" Like she's just like, "What?" And then like Morgan's like all stoic already. He's heading over. Yeah, it was a cool moment. The feature match actually was awful.
Yeah, it was. There obviously is no video coverage for this GP, and there was like two tables set up. It was dark, and apparently there was a leak that was behind us as well. So it's like we played in like the dark alley of the tournament hall, as it were. And yeah, it was. I would have to say I've played against some pretty big like SCG grinders and stuff like that, but. I've never played against a person that's won a Pro Tour, which I had to do at this time around because I had to play against Craig Wesco. So that was pretty interesting. Now, Mike, you've played against the world champion before and won. So
I'm actually now 2-0 against world champions. I got paired against BBD. And we played a pseudo mirror. I had the blue green emerge deck in our pool, so we had a blue green emerge. Morgan had red black vampires, which is a really good vampires deck.
That was sweet.
Every 2-drop was a madness enabler.
Yeah,
like every
awesome.
2-drop. So, and then my wife was playing a mono white deck that I think we misevaluated in our build.
We did, I believe.
Now she'll be the first to tell you. She out of the three of us, she is not the highest skilled player, but she knows how to play Magic. She holds her own, and that deck failed her a number of times. So that was unfortunate. And looking back, I think that's the deck that if we had a chance to rebuild, we would have wanted to.
Yeah, we definitely would have probably given that deck more time in the actual sort of build phase.
So we played the pseudo mirror, and I was able to stay ahead tempo game one, and then decimate, and I mean that very specifically, decimate of the provinces, the world champion, which was really good. And then game two, I was able to use some scuttlers to keep recurring. That deck had two of the something shot. I can't remember the name of it.
Clear shot?
Clear shot, yeah.
Oh,
two
God.
clear shots and two vexing scuttlers. So I was able to chain a number of clear shots to break through for my flyers. He missed a land drop, and it went from there. So I was able to take that match pretty quickly and commandingly. Now, Katie unfortunately played against Shaheen Sarani, mulled a 4 game one. So game one of her first GP ever, playing in the feature match area against this team. She after her mold, she picks up her 4 and looks at me, and I'm like, she has like 2 lands and 2 things, and I'm like, what else are you gonna do? She made the second game very close, but she lost there. So I win very quickly. She loses fairly quickly, and all of a sudden,
it's to me.
It's all on Morgan.
Showdown.
This is like the where clearly where I want to be, in the hot seat against Craig Wesco. Match win. For round 1 on the line. Great, perfect. This is it was. It was a great time. So I actually got game 1 pretty quickly. And then game 2 took a little bit longer when he eventually was successful in besting me there.
What was he playing?
White and blue.
Oh, you don't say.
Yeah, correct. I wasn't shocked. I knew. As soon as I saw planes, I was like, makes sense. But he had Spell Queller in his deck, so he
had some gas.
He definitely had a pretty sweet deck himself. So we're obviously down to the game 3, and I definitely had a pretty clutch turn where he was definitely trying to do his best to sort of bluff, like potentially like a bounce spell or something like that, asking me questions about what Voldair and Pariah.
A bomb by any string.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I basically won the game and subsequently the match off of that card. So round 1, we defeated the world champions team. It was pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie. We at that point in time had already decided that we won that. It was all gravy from here at this point in time. Like you got a good story at the very least from that. So and by default, Mike is now the world champion. So congratulations!
Yeah, it was cool.
Your newly minted title.
There was the belt. It was a sort of winner take all thing.
Yeah, it was handed right off. He
also gave me the check that he won the week before. He's like, I hadn't got a chance to cash this. I guess this is yours now. I was like, wow, that's really nice.
Did you sign it over on the back?
No, he gave me a deposit slip. I was actually depositing it for him. He just had a chance to get to the bank.
Okay.
No, honestly, I've interacted with BBD minimally before, but every time he's been really nice and actually actively playing against the guy, especially the week after his
Not
greatest
even a
moment.
week after.
The whole team was nice.
Oh yeah, no, there's nothing negative I'd say about the experience that we had playing them. They were very clear in like their game actions and everything like that, and they were not in any way, shape, or form mean or nasty. They were great gentlemen to play against.
And spoiler alert, I did talk to one BBD about a possible appearance on this show, so stay tuned.
That is
Maybe
currently
we'll get
a developing story. As it were.
So from then on, we unfortunately did not have a great day. We ended up 3-4 before we dropped. We had a couple of rounds. I definitely feel like I may have thrown away one of our matches early in the day. I just did not play a game 2 as tight as I needed to, having already been down a game. And unfortunately, my wife was not really able. She wasn't able to win a match on the day, and that she was pretty hard on herself for that. And it's not Magic's hard. Magic at that level is hard.
Yeah, and especially with team GPs, it's very hard. Sometimes your matchups just don't line up with what you're playing. Sometimes the deck in a limited setting just doesn't work. Mulligans are so much harder on your actual ability to play in limited, and sometimes you just have those hands that you have to mulligan. So when you have to do that over and over again, and when your deck runs on sort of an axis that never comes together during the entire tournament, then you're gonna have a bad tournament. And I think that's just what happened.
Yeah.
The deck we misevaluated it, and it never kind of did what it was supposed to do. So
yeah, it was really weird. Like we had 7 or 8 2-drops in this white deck,
a ton.
And she just watching never had the kind of game where you just go like 2-drop, 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 2-drop. You know what I mean? Like turn 3 or turn 2 2-drop, turn 3 2-drop, and then like another spell on turn 4. Like she never just was able to curve consistently, and just like had multiple times where like we were splashing for Campaign of Vengeance, but it wasn't like difficult. We had like a blighted landscape or wasted landscape, whatever it is.
Yeah.
A couple of swamps. We had a Cryptolith Fragment, and it just seemed like there were multiple games where she drew the one of campaign, but couldn't draw the 5 or 6 black sources. So, and it was just like one of those things. It's like, okay, well, you still have another turn to draw a black source, and couldn't do this. And she was pretty frustrated. We lost to another pretty good team of with the featured Gerard Fabiano and I can't remember his first name, Cassis.
Ellie Cassis.
And who'd you play against that match? Do you remember?
I should, but I can't remember.
Notable for sure,
Yes,
and just a strong team, and they beat us pretty handedly as well. At least I think you might have gotten your match that one, but
I got mine that one. Yeah. We played against Greg Orange's team.
Yeah, that
was our round 2.
Yeah, that was. So
yeah.
So we played a number of our first 3 rounds our first 4 rounds were all pretty solid opponents. So 3 and 4 was not too bad, especially for having a person who was sort of dealing with a new experience. So I had a ton of fun though. This whole weekend was fun.
I mean,
Yeah,
I got
great.
to beat Craig Wesco and Greg Orange, so that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, so I teamed with former Star City Open champion Riley Curran and former GP champion and Pro Tour top 4 competitor Pierre Mondin.
And Super Sunday Series top 8 competitor.
Yeah, this past weekend Super Sunday Series top 8 competitor Pierre Mondin. So we ended up with a similar setup. I had the blue green emerge deck. Riley was playing the black green deck, or he was playing the black red aggro deck, and Pierre had the white. We ended up playing like a white black deck, but mainly white. My deck splashed Tamio, which is pretty good every time I got to play it.
Shocking.
Otherwise, I think my deck was probably the worst one on our team. I just didn't have a lot of the key cards that you need. Like, I didn't have any clear shots on my deck. I didn't have any Vexing Scuttlers. Didn't have any Somberwald Stags. I think in that deck you really need some of those green quasi-removal spells. All I had was like a Prey Upon and was it Rabid Bite? Is that the sorcerer?
Right, but it's quality, but yeah.
Yeah. I had those two, which are okay, but I was missing a lot of the other kind of key cards that you need for that deck. But I think I had. We ended up going. We lost in round 1. It was a very close match. We ended up not really playing against any big names like you guys did, so we kind of like went under the radar on that. But we lost round 1, rattled off 4 in a row, so we were 4-1, and then lost 2 in a row from there, and then 1 in round 8. So we ended up. So we were 5-3 with a chance to day 2. If we were able to win in the last round, and then we made a decision. I know Pierre wanted to really play in the Super Sunday Series, and people were making dinner plans. So we kind of decided that we didn't really want to come back and grind day 2 for basically having to win out really to really do anything. So we made the decision to drop, even though we were still in contention for day 2. But in any case, it was a super fun tournament. I mean, before last week at the Comic Town event, or I should say the previous week at the Comic Town event, and then this GP, the last time I had played Team Limited was a very long time ago. And it kind of, I had so much fun playing. And really just playing Limited in general. It's been a while since I've really gotten invested into a Limited format, and I think this format's pretty sweet. So I'm probably going to continue to play it, at least for the next couple of weeks until Kaladesh comes out. But yeah, super fun tournament, super fun weekend overall. Did we talk about the dinner place that we went to?
Oh no, we haven't.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Quick disclaimer to all of our vegetarian and vegan fans out there. Very sorry about this next segment. Oh man, because you would not be happy about the animals that our entire table consumed. We went to a lovely burger joint called Game, as in the hunting term game. Rather than the game term of
Not
game.
like hashtag game.
Not like hashtag game. And I've had the best burger I've had in my life at this place. And I've eaten at Swenson's, and I must say, though Swenson's is a lovely Northeast Ohio restaurant that if it was in Columbus, I would be dead by now. But I had a Wagyu beef burger, and it was $17, and I would buy it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think you're comparing a sit-down restaurant that specializes in like various game animals to a drive-in, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't know if it really.
It was close. All right. I'm saying that
If it was close, that means it's like more points for Swenson's, right? Like,
fact. I'm not dismissing Swenson's.
Yeah, if you are ever playing at any event in the Northeast part of Ohio, Swenson's is where you go. If you ever,
Please.
like, that's the biggest pro tip I can give you for playing any event in the Northeast.
Correct.
Swenson's, and not the frozen dinner truck. Okay, don't be a heathen.
Anyway, and then we tried kangaroo,
Oh yeah,
was good.
I had an alpaca burger.
alpaca.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
This is slowly devolving into a food cast.
Yeah, funny
funny you
story.
should say that. So we went there. So I had the wild boar and some kangaroo, and they were both great. But as we were sitting down, who should wander into the restaurant but pro player David Ochoa? And the whole table was very happy because if you don't know this, while he is known for his magic prowess, David Ochoa is also known for being quite the foodie. He likes to post like handcrafted images of food to his Twitter feed, and he also, when he does write the occasional tournament report, most of the time it's just an excuse to write about the food places he ate at. So if you manage to go to a new city for a GP and you happen to just by happenstance go into the same restaurant as David Ochoa, you have literally won.
Correct.
That
You knew
is
you
why it
came
was
to the
called
right
Game.
place.
Yeah.
We were just ecstatic, and I went up and talked to him a little bit. I was like, hey, I want to let you know that, like, we really were very excited to see you come in here because we knew that we had chosen a good place to eat. And he was very nice about it. He was really soft spoken. He's like, wow, that's really, really nice. I'm like, I'm gonna let you eat your meal now, but we're pretty. So it was.
We could see him like taking pictures. And
Oh yeah,
stuff.
we
We're like,
yeah,
Look, he's doing it. He's doing
we're
it.
seeing the artist at work.
Yeah, it was like watching Van Gogh paint. So.
Oh man, that was. I will say, as far as any restaurant we've gone to in any city we've gone to, and this includes everything I ate in Spain. This is the best restaurant I've gone to in my
it was.
tournament.
Yeah,
It was amazing. I mean,
It's-
not to mention like the food, but the actual like customer service that we received. We walked in there and it's they closed at 10. We probably got there around 8 or so.
With a party of 10.
With a party of 10 people, and we never felt that we were inconvenienced. We were treated.
They had to
like,
push 3 tables together for
yeah,
us.
we were treated like
And it
kings.
wasn't a problem.
And it was amazing.
yeah, and this was a small place too.
Yeah,
like this wasn't like a big restaurant. I mean, it was
No.
pretty small inside. They had a little bit of outside seating, but yeah, they really helped us out with that.
Yep.
so.
We had a great time. We played games of dice, which was very enjoyable.
Yeah, many drinks may have been consumed,
Of varying degrees.
varying degrees.
And if you ever are anywhere near that restaurant, go and don't even think twice about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry for that quick aside into food, but it was heaven.
It was that
People,
good.
the
We
people
have
need
talk
to
about
know.
like
yeah.
we eat a lot of random places, and we don't talk about it on here very often. But that night was magical.
It was pretty good.
When I remember it now, there are definitely like sparkles over the memories, and there's definitely some '80s music with like a jazz sax playing.
Oh yeah.
Was this like? Oh man, now I can't think of the movie. I don't know. All right, never mind. Move on.
All I
Good
know
job.
is I can hear
It was,
"Careless."
it was,
Whisper.
that was a fleeting memory there.
Also, one I guess slops is what this is called. One slops for Louisville. Fix your road system, man. It's all messed up. I went to Indiana for a hot second trying to get somewhere. Okay.
GPS didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
it was like
just-
these roads are all different now. It's like shifting borders.
It was bad. Just fix yourself, or contact Google Maps and get them to fix something, anything. But I shouldn't have to go to a different state to get to where I need to go in your state. So fix it. It's bad. No one liked it. All right. Anything else from the GP that we want to talk about? Anything at all?
Did some cubes.
Yes, we did
On Sunday, so-
cubes, and then we played the new Max Temkin game. If you don't know about it, it was kickstarted. I don't know. Should I say the name of
It's
it?
called Secret Hitler.
Secret Hitler.
Dear Lord.
It's the name of the game.
I don't know. It could be offensive to people.
The man's dead. We won. It's called Secret Hitler. We won World War II. We're allowed to say Hitler. Take that one, Hitler. Score one for the Union boys.
Correct. And that game is amazing. It is amazing. I have
Yeah,
to
it was
say.
great. It was. Oh my god, I want to play. I can't wait to play it again.
I know.
can't
I'm very excited. So if you ever get a chance to, I know that Dave kickstarted it. So if you have an opportunity to buy it, then
Yeah,
so.
I finally got it. I kickstarted it like last November, and it literally just came like a week before the GP. I'm like, all right, I'm bringing this. We're gonna play this. 'Cause
Kickstarter.
I've-
It takes time, Dave.
No, I know. I'm not like complaining. I'm just saying like it was like a long time coming. I was like, all right, I really want to play this now because it looks sweet, and it was.
It was amazing. So, yeah, I mean, Sunday was great. Even though we did day 2, we drafted Dave's cube a lot, which is very important. The Cube Invitational is coming up here soon. I won't be able to attend it
I'm
because
still really sorry about that.
Dave's a monster. And it's fine. You're only at my wedding. That's okay though. But it's very important to get your reps in with everyone else, and it was a good time. And Katie got to redeem herself.
Yeah.
She won the first draft. So
Yeah,
she took a lap.
Yeah.
She took a lap around the table.
Yeah, shout out to Katie, and she bashed me out. We ended up playing, and we just did like a straight 8-man bracket, and she bashed me out in round 2, not close.
yeah.
And
So overall, this is probably one of the best GPs I've ever gone to. It was actually run really smooth too.
It was so fun. It was just relaxing and fun.
Yeah, I have to say, there wasn't a whole lot of after round 1, there wasn't a whole lot of stress or anything like that. It was a lot of, and starting off round 1 like that, how often do you get to do that? Say who did you play against in round 1? I played against the world champion, or I played against a pro tour champion and won. And got to feel like $1 million for a hot second. So that was a pretty cool experience. And
Yeah.
I know you guys have had those experiences before, but that was the highest echelon of player that I've had to play against. So
That's what keeps it going in this game. Those moments are great.
yeah,
So
for sure. But yeah, I was actually once I saw the banner of who was running it and was like, oh, it's not one of the people I don't like to run it. I was fairly comfortable with the tournament.
yeah,
So shout out to TJ Collectibles.
yeah, for sure.
They've started to come up as being one of the better tournament organizers that we can possibly run into in our area. So
Yeah. Fun fact: I've played in many a tournament at the actual TJ Collectibles store, which is in Milford, Massachusetts. So, growing up, that's where a lot of the states and regionals and things like that were held. So, it's Tom Shea's the owner, and he's kind of come a long way. I mean, the tournaments used to be literally in the basement of that store, and he's really built it up, and obviously is running GPs now. So, yeah. So good shout out. And Team Limited, just playing that has me super excited for next year where we have a Team Limited event in Columbus.
Columbus, that's going to be a great time. I will definitely be excited to have that type of tournament in my backyard. So yeah, pretty sweet. All right, now of course Louisville wasn't the only Team GP that happened over the weekend.
Did we
had
say who won?
GP Kyoto.
Did we say who won Louisville?
Oh, excuse me. No, we didn't. Sorry.
That's enough about us.
We were so swept up in our own stories. But yeah, no. Congrats to Sam Black, Matt Severa, and Justin Cohen for winning the actual tournament. Not surprising to see 3 names win it. In all honesty, that's typically how these things shake down. You have 3 people who are very good at Magic playing together. It's very hard to sort of break into the top ranks of these kind of tournaments.
And it makes sense too. I mean, the Madison crowd. I mean, that's where these guys are from.
Yeah,
they're kind of known for their limited prowess as well. And Sam Black and Justin Cohen are roommates. Matt Severa is a well-known limited player. So not really surprising to see them take it down.
Yeah,
and they're really kind of dominated this tournament. They were pretty much in first from
the
start to
entire
finish.
time.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep.
So yeah, congratulations to them. Also, give a quick shout out to Chris Pakula's team.
Yeah, they finished just outside of the top 4 somewhere.
Yeah, they finished in, I think, the top 16.
Yeah,
but this gets us closer to getting Mr. Pakula
I think he said one more pro point.
over to being on that ballot again. And man, again, I just want him in the Hall of Fame. I just want him there so bad. Just do it.
I have to think that if he gets back on the ballot, then he'll get a lot of support.
I hope so.
It seems like he's gotten more support since he's been taken off the ballot than he did when he was on.
Yeah, in honesty, I feel like Walking the Plains and Enter the Battlefield, that documentary really did a lot to shine a spotlight on him and give maybe people that don't necessarily know about him more of a kind of a fleshed out character of who he was and his actual struggle and everything like that. So, man, I hope he does it. And I hope he gets on the ballot and gets in. That would be that'd be a pretty good way to end the year, start 2017, things like that. I don't exactly know when that actually would happen because years, whatever. So, but it'd be a good thing. I'd be happy. So I hope we can do it. What are we? Is there
Oh
taking
no, I'm
too
sorry, I
much
was just
time?
getting bored.
Okay, anyway, moving on. Let's talk about GP Kyoto. It was won by Yuki Matsumoto, Yuki Ichikawa, and Kazuyuki Takamura. So congratulations. It was lots of Yukis in this tournament. That's why they were so strong. As we know, Yuki Ichikawa, one of the most prominent Japanese players around. So
One of your favorites.
Oh, one of my favorites. I'm elated that he took down this tournament along with his team. So congratulations to those gentlemen. Now Kyoto had like a ton more teams than Louisville did as well.
Yeah, so they had something like 740 teams or something like that.
It was insane.
I don't know.
Louisville had just over 500.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think that's kind of crazy. When you think about it. But that's awesome. That's awesome to see that like a ton of people came out to play Magic over the weekend.
yeah, they had 779 teams.
That's so many teams.
I think it was capped at 800.
Wow, that they almost got there. That's
Almost
surprising.
got there. But yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, I mean, again, you see kind of the cream rising to the top as it usually does in these team events.
Yes.
So not really surprising.
No. I think it's almost expected that you at least have two of the three being like decently prestigious, somewhat Magic players. So kind of makes sense. But yeah, it was a fairly exciting weekend, and then I'm glad that we went and did it. Went to Louisville and had like such a good time. I can't wait to go on another Magic adventure again and see how we do. But I think that's going to be it for our competitive segment. And time to move into the question of the week. And in all honesty, this is something that we probably should have gotten to a little bit earlier, but we've had some things come up that we just kind of talked about. Little shows running a little long in the tooth and everything like that. So, but one of our listeners, Zeb, who's a local player, actually reached out to us and asked us a question sort of about our local area, basically. And we're not going to not talk about where we play locally and what's happening in our own community. So we thought we'd try to tackle his question, basically. So basically, he asks us, have we noticed a decline in attendance for our local events in Columbus? How about larger scale GPs, Start City Games Opens, and what do we think is contributing to this?
So I think we're fortunate enough to play in an area that has a lot of local stores that run Magic events, even more so than just FNMs. I mean, there are a lot of stores that run PPTQs and things like that, IQs and stuff like that. And then even our sponsor, Comic Town, is probably the most prominent in this area. And Ryan's always running special events with really good prizes, good value. And I do see what it's saying. It has been frustrating at times to see the turnout. I think that we've been getting around here, especially because I feel like since I've moved here, I moved here in 2009, and Columbus had a way bigger Magic scene than I was used to. Even playing in the Northeast. So to see the attendance kind of seemingly drop off around here is kind of baffling to me, and I don't know that I have a really good answer why, but. I don't know.
Yeah, this is something that I think I know I've been frustrated out more than a few times. We have a number of local community groups. We have a large Ohio group that we're part of, a specific Columbus area group that we're part of. These are Facebook groups, and I get really tired of individuals who complain about the lack of events, but then don't go to events, or don't look for the events. When events are posted and shared, and hey, this event is coming up, and then it's like, wait, there's an event coming up, and you just want to reach through the internet and gently shake a person. Now that doesn't say it's all on the player. I'm not going to say that. There's definitely other factors, but I do think there's a level of, and I don't like using this word, I guess, but it goes with what I do, so I hate to tell you this, but there's a level of entitlement in the player base of how events are supposed to be and the quality of events, and I think that like they just sort of take that for granted. When there's plenty of areas outside of here that just don't even have the option to run the kind of events that they do. And I think, like, obviously anything we say here, yeah, we're sponsored by Comic Town. We say good things about Comic Town, but we wanted to be sponsored by Comic Town because we love playing in Comic Town and playing for Ryan because he rewards players. And I feel like players don't always reward him back for the hard work that he does and what he's trying to do for the community. I do think locally, we've had a number of stores who've been turned off by the PPTQ process and have shunned them as of recently, which I don't step foot in those stores because of that. That's the only reason I have to go to some other stores. So I do think that there's sort of this weird, like, they think that, like, well, I just don't like this. I'm not getting the result I want out of it. Well, they're sort of punishing the community at large for that. And then in return, you get less people coming out because of it. So I think that's diminishing. You could argue that Standard has not been great. I loved Con Standard. I really enjoyed it. But when prices hit those highs, people were upset about it. Now, whether that was them just complaining or not, it definitely did price some people out. Then the format, even recently, has been sort of stale. You know what I mean? Morgan has essentially sold out of Standard for the time being. And this is a person who does a Magic podcast. So
I haven't played Standard since week 1 when Eldritch Moon came out, when we played the SCG Open.
So I guess let me try to identify a couple of factors, specifically by name, and I'll see what you guys think about them. So I do think number one factor is the player base. I think it is, locally and even at large. There's an expectancy of return for the player base that it's there, and they just pretend like it's not, and it's frustrating. People do not take it upon themselves to find the events and plan for them. 2, I think it's been Standard as a format as of recently. It's either been it's been a kind of a Goldilocks. That's either been too expensive or too stale, and we need to find a format that's just right. Do you like that? That was smooth.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Congrats.
I'll give you that one.
All right. And I guess those would be really my main points. I guess if I was going to make a third point, I would argue that there's a bit of complacency with the way the formats and tournaments have been set up. You've seen Star City move away from limited events at their opens, which people really like those. People still mention those today. They don't exist. The way the GP formats work, you know what I mean? Like, they're almost all standard. So people don't get to play the events they always want to. We saw a huge turnout at Comic Town for the Team Trios event. We saw, they're running, if you haven't been paying attention, we've said it on here so many times that, again, reaching through the internet and gently shaking you, or aggressively, either way. But they've been running their own tournament series with a championship at the end of it. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've been paying attention to what happens to a large tournament series like Star City Games, who has a championship event, but they send people to the Pro Tour because of it. So there's an attempt being made here to set something up for Ohio in the same situation. And yet we saw Team Trios, as an expo, a minor event, get almost as many players as the largest classic event that they've had. And that's frustrating. But you could say that the format drew people in. So, there's something to be said for that as well. So I guess, the homogenizing of the formats, I guess, would be my third point. So what do you guys think?
So, some things like locally that I think factor into it. Again, I think that formats. So I think that Standard itself is uninteresting, and I think that drives people away. And I think that could be influencing some of the Standard events that we see being low turnout. So that is definitely a factor. I definitely think that sort of the amount of stores that we have locally is high comparatively to other, areas. You'd have to take a look at other metropolitan areas. I feel like that might not be that weird.
It's the kind of research we don't really have access to.
Right. And I think that influences a lot. I think people definitely tribalize their stores. So they're like, I play here. This is my local LGS, and
we're a goblin store.
Sure, exactly. And I think that specifically with Columbus, you definitely have sides of the city that people tend to stick to. So, if you're on, the east side compared to the west side, is going to influence your default store, obviously. And, you know, a lot of people don't have the availability to travel to a specific store to go to a tournament or go to an FNM as easily as, you know, we do, basically. Columbus isn't necessarily a very good, like, public transit city, all in all, which I think influences a lot of people. And a lot more than you may consider. You know, Columbus is a car city, and if you don't have a car, a lot of times it's not as easy to get around. So transportation will definitely drive where you're able to go. And you know, if you have competing tournaments happening over the weekend, which I feel like we've gotten better at as a community, and like I know our local store owners do communicate with each other to make sure that there isn't much overlap that does happen, so that, you know, the player base isn't, you know, fragmented as much as it could be. But I think like season also has a lot to do with it as well. You know, we're in summer, and Dave, you said that, you know, the Magic scene in 2009 was a lot bigger, a lot more thriving than it seems to be now. Well, those same people that you started playing with maybe just have less time or have moved on from the game.
Yeah, I was going to make that point, actually. I mean, I can speak for myself in that, you know, people that don't know, I have mentioned it here, but, you know, I am expecting a second child here in actually 2 months exactly from today. So, you know, middle of November. And, you know, with that, you know, I'm going to be kind of taking a step back a little bit from the competitive scene. So I won't be hitting up as many events as I have been, you know, over the past couple of years.
Right.
So for me, I know that even recently, like, I haven't really been hitting up a lot of local events.
Yeah.
You know, a couple weeks ago, I hit up the team trios, you know, to practice for the GP, because that's something that I had committed to prior. But, you know, going forward, it's going to be sparingly for me, at least for the time being. You know, who knows in the future? But
yeah, especially since we're just like leaving, you know, summer, and, you know, during summer, your you know, kids out of school, and, you know, I'm sure a lot of other players, you know, have families, have kids that they don't necessarily have the same flexibility. So it could be that, you know, our player base locally could just be, you know, aging with the game and not having the same flexibility as they once used to. Now we do have, I think that we've had a decent number of influx of, you know, younger players coming in, everything like that, but they could also just be different and interested in different segments of the game, so there may be more limited players, and that's why Comic Town sees higher draft numbers and sees higher, you know, team trios numbers than pre-release numbers than we do see constructed tournaments.
I think you mentioned something very interesting there, and I just want to touch on that real quick. So you mentioned that, you know, there's different ways to play the game, and there are more different ways to play the game now than there used to be. You know, we have things
Correct.
like Cube is way bigger than it was when I moved here.
Right. Because, you know, Cube's on Magic Online during like dry spells in the you know, release schedules.
It's a much more mainstream thing. Before, you know, it was kind of the Wild West, you know, back in 2009. So, you know, Cube's a big thing. Commander is a much bigger thing than it was back then. You know, we have all these specialty products coming out. You know, we have Arch Enemy coming out next year. You know, another new set
and
for
the
that.
Branches collections.
Yeah.
You can get that out.
Yeah, you get things like, you know, Type 4. You get so, you know, it's possible that the community is just more spread out. I mean, it's not necessarily less players. It's just maybe you have more people that have decided, you know, I'm just going to play these casual formats. I'm good with that. That's certainly possible.
Yeah, and like just during summer, like people are more inclined to go on vacation, go outside, and not necessarily stay inside for a whole Saturday and play, you know, Magic. So I think that has a lot of influence on what we might have seen as a decrease. Now, I think heading into fall, you know, I think fall is probably, you know, a pretty decent time to pick up the game, play Magic. We have a new set coming in. We have Kaladesh. We have Rotation.
Not just a new set, but a new plane.
Yeah, a brand new plane that definitely gets a lot of people excited. And you know, during fall specifically, like, you have Thanksgiving as a big holiday, but you don't necessarily have, you know, winter, which you have worse weather here locally, and you have, you know, Christmas and New Year's Eve and things like that, which kind of hinder your ability to actually play the game, basically.
You do have college kids like coming back, and Columbus is a pretty big college town.
Yeah, that is another thing. So you'll have people that go to pick up their studies at OSU and need to find a new store to play Magic from, and so I'm sure that there are clubs at OSU that would probably get together and actually play the game. But sometimes you need to find an LGS, and that's where people start to go out and do research. But I think that locally speaking, that we're probably going to rebound when Kaladesh comes out, and we'll see kind of where we land as far as that's concerned. And I hope that's what happens, and I hope that Standard is not cost prohibitive for people to play, and that it is expanded.
Yeah, and as we go to the other direction of this, I do have two sort of thoughts. One thing I do want to say is I do hope the players continue to come back, but the concept of an aging player base is something that really is worth considering. And if you don't think that it's something to at least be cognizant of, you should pay attention to things like the fact that Star City capped their opens, almost all of their opens on all of them, all of the opens on their tour. They haven't hit any of the caps. Okay, a couple years ago we were routinely playing in Columbus, 1,100 person
10 round day one open.
Yeah, I mean that's just what was happening. Now you could argue that it's more expensive. Yeah, it's more expensive. People can't commit to 2 days all the time. People can't commit. Sure, these are all factors, but when you're talking about 450 players in an open versus 1,100 players in an open, it's not just the cost. What?
It's a little bit of the cost.
Yeah, I said it's not just the cost.
I know,
cost,
but it's a little bit of the cost.
A $15 increase does not account for 600 players disappearing.
Well, I mean, in the grand scheme, $15 isn't a lot. But
I think
you see the number, and it's just in reality, it's not that much more. But even just the GP over the weekend.
Oh no,
it's
I'm
$70.
I am agreeing with you, but I'm saying it's not the only factor that leads to those numbers.
Yeah,
we know that Magic hasn't grown at nearly the percentage it was going into the first Innistrad, and it makes sense. You can't always have exponential growth, but we said all these good things about our inventions at the beginning of the episodes, our masterpieces. But I think you should really consider long and hard what the other the other implication of masterpieces are. They want to sell packs, and these things are planned well in advance, meaning that they identified that they were going to possibly have an issue or a reason to want to sell more packs. Now, again, make Standard accessible, sure. Bring more excitement to the game, sure. But they saw a need to do it, a reason that this should continue happening.
Well,
and you could look to the player base for that.
I was going to say, it could also just be Hasbro saying hey, we just sell more packs.
No, I mean, sure.
I'm sure that's definitely part of it.
But what I'm saying is 3 years ago, Hasbro wasn't saying that because they had exponential growth.
Right.
Right? Hasbro would only be saying this if they aren't growing. You know what I mean? There's no need to, I got to sell more packs if you're record numbers every quarter. And you can't always have record numbers, but.
I mean, it's only going to go for so long, Yeah.
The other thing I do want to say, and this is sort of specifically personal to this, but there's a writer on Star City, and he's not on premium, so I'm not going to send you to another premium article, I promise. But if you're not familiar with Mark Nestico, you should start reading his pieces. You should. He's a very unique voice in the Magic community. He wrote a piece this week discussing the need for Magic players to stop trying to be other Magic players. And it was really interesting about how, people people play another person's deck, right? And they're just oh well, and they literally say oh, you're playing Anderson's list, right, or this person's list, or this person's list, right? But they don't know how to play it because they're not that person. We've discussed this on this cast multiple times. Dave and I, are very have been very competitive in nature. Obviously Morgan, you are as well. But I think Dave and I are. You tend to agree with me on a lot of deck building axes, Morgan. Dave and I do not agree commonly. Dave has taken me aside multiple times to criticize cards, and I had to work hard to earn my voice in this conversation. But
hey, that's good though. I mean,
it is good. I don't see people doing it.
Yeah,
and that's what that article said: is that people just fit into these roles they're assigned to in their play groups and in the community based on what they're reading, and they try to emulate people they can't be, so they become upset because they don't have the same results. It was really, I don't know, it was really, I'm sorry, I just hit my ring on this. It was really, really enlightening, and I thought about how, I haven't seen people brewing as much in the last year to year and a half. I love doing that, and I haven't done it as much. And I do think it's something that maybe people get away from. Like maybe you just need to rediscover why you like the game and rediscover who you are in the game. And maybe that sounds a little hokey, but I think it was a really good piece, and it really got me thinking about like the community at large accepting these roles and then getting burnt out because of it.
Yeah,
I was gonna say that maybe this is kind of what you're talking about, but maybe it's the opposite of what you're talking about. So I know Tom Ross had an article maybe about a month and a half ago, where he talked about, I think this is when he just kind of talked about, for a while he kind of like lost his way, but now he's back. Like he knows the kind of decks that he's good with, and he's going to kind of stay in his lane. Is that kind of the opposite of what you're saying?
No,
or are you just saying like find your style,
okay.
like find your own style?
I think it's a mix of both. So rediscovering your lane means figuring out what you're good at in the game and focusing on that.
Right.
And Nestico is saying that what you're good at in the game may be very different than what other people are good at in the game, but because we, especially the competitive idea, like sort of revere certain players and certain ideas, you know what I mean? People would say that, Patrick Sullivan, right? Excellent red mage, right? But he plays red decks differently than a lot of other people do. And we can talk philosophy of fire, we can talk whatever we want. You are not Patrick Sullivan.
Okay, so you're saying like there are less explorers.
Yes, absolutely. Like
Okay.
Tom Ross became who he is because he identified what he's good at. And he said that multiple times, that he plays decks that he knows are not good choices in invitationals because he can play them well. And this article mentioned players like like a Jeff Hoagland. I know Jeff is a divisive figure. I know that his personality does not always mesh well with everybody. But the guy has identified what he's good at, and he's exploited that role in the format, and he's made a lot of money doing it. And people then like celebrate him, like, and jump on these things, and then wonder why the decks aren't perfect. And they don't know how to change the deck. They don't know how to play with it differently, and they get mad because, well, there's obviously something wrong with this, or that was a fluke. It's not a fluke. Figure out how to be better at it. So I think it's interesting from that. Again, I'm going back to the player base, saying like, finding their own space again. And it'd be interesting if that happens.
So you're saying basically like it's almost like a lack of critical thinking. Like you're not getting the basics of the game down where you can understand, this list isn't perfect. So instead of like trying to fix it, I'm just going to scrap it and look for the next list that comes out.
I'm sort of tapping into a larger subject.
Yeah, it's kind of a lot of things.
Let me try to explain it like this. So I'm going to go to Big Boros. It was a weird deck that I was really successful with and loved playing. And I had a lot of people, for a small period of time, it was notable enough that I had a lot of people ask me how to play it. It didn't do well again. Like nothing like the open circuit or anything. But people were playing it. I had messages from them. They didn't know how to play it. I had you, Dave, tell me you didn't know how to play the deck.
Oh yeah.
And it wasn't so much not know how. You know how Magic works, right? But I play the game the way I play the game. My brain works the way my brain works, and that works for me. Okay? It's the same reason why, Dave, you can take a Delver deck that has no business doing well in a format, but make it work because you see those lines differently. And I'm saying that people aren't working to find out why they're good at the game. You know why you love the game. We've talked so much time on here about why you love the game. Figure out how you're good at the game. And I think Nestico's article is really interesting. I seriously, please go read it. Now, does that solve the problem we're talking about here about less people coming to play the game? I don't know, but some of the frustration that appears in competitive circles that causes people to get burned out, may be part of that. And I'll even point to you a little bit here, Morgan, that sometimes you are the kind of person who I think you don't always identify that. You want to play a wide range of decks, and you don't maybe sometimes spend the time saying like, this is what I want to, I need to be doing. I want to do all these things, and I want to do all these things too. But sometimes, and I don't know, maybe you disagree with that. Maybe I'm being forward here.
No, maybe it makes sense.
So there, I fixed it. Now you're going to play standard?
I want to see, like, it's not, I have nothing against, like, I have nothing against wanting to play standard. I know. I'd love to play standard, but I want to know, like, is it a decent enough like aggressive deck with some reach viable?
But I think that if week one, because you're not going to play week one more than likely,
probably not. No,
I think if week one an aggressive deck that you like doesn't do very well, I think that you would quickly say, I don't think there's anything I want to play in the format. instead of saying, I'm going to find the way to play this in the format. And I think a lot of the player base recently has done this, and that may account for some of the lack of interest in events. You know, this is awe of like looking at players who, and you could take this to society at large. You know, I'm a fat guy who loves watching, you know, athletes do well, and I don't, you know, but if I were to sit here and go like, you know, I could sit here and go like, I'd like to be able to play like that, and then I don't go to the gym and work out and make it so that's possible. You know what I mean? So like, I don't have this cognitive dissonance that says that like, oh, I could do that, I just don't want to. I could try to do that, but I'm not. You know what I mean? Does that point make sense? Was it too rambling?
No, I got you.
Okay, I hope that made some sense. Okay,
it definitely makes sense, but I mean, you can't. So I don't think that every player has the capability of fitting a square peg in a round hole.
No, you've got to find the hole to match your peg. That.
But I mean, like, so. While
that was supposed to be inspirational.
While in this current format, you can build like a mono red aggressive deck. You can build that deck, but is it worth your time and energy to try to make that deck viable? To pound that deck, to spend money to try and play that deck.
I get the idea of spending money, and that's the other piece of it we talked about. And hopefully, then standard gets cheaper. You mentioned mono red. I understand. You probably want to experiment mono red. And that means you want to play Chandra. And I understand not wanting to do that. And when I say you, now I'm talking people at large. I get it. So, yeah, it's hard from that perspective. I get that. But I do think it's worth it. If you're passionate about the game and you do want to go to these things, I think it's more fruit. And again, I'm talking at large now. I know I'm still saying you and Morgan sitting in front of me, but I'm talking at large now. If you want to enjoy the game, you know, I think this weekend was a big deal for me. I had a ton of fun this weekend, despite having one of the worst performances I've ever had in a GP, and the worst performance I've had in a GP in 2 years. Like, I don't care. I had a ton of fun, and I think you got to rediscover that. And I think that competitive Magic has moved away from that, and Kaladesh brings with it some optimism. As a plane,
a new hope, if you will.
A new hope.
I mean, we talk a lot about like brewing, and then trying to find viable ways to play your game of Magic. And I think with Kaladesh, we have all these inventors and these inventions, and I think that kind of maybe hopefully awakens some mechanisms inside of people to
a new hope. Hopefully, a force awakens.
So that people do that.
I would aim for the Aether to strike back, but
And like I know that there's a deck that I want to be viable that they've had cards sort of released for and like kind of pushed towards that, and so hopefully that is a viable strategy. And I want to build that deck and play that deck, but I mean I'm not also like. The fiscally responsible person inside of me goes, well, yeah, I could build that deck and it could be garbage, and then I could continue to play that deck and continue to run myself into a brick wall, and maybe I'll have success with it because of the way that I like playing the game, or maybe I won't because the deck is just too bad. Like the deck, like at some point in time, you do have to consider deck viability.
Oh no, yeah, that's a whole different discussion, and like deck tuning and version 1.0 to final version and
right.
etc.
And whether the other cards in the format are just too powerful to ignore. And I think that's what happened with Collected Company. I think that you can't have decks that beat Collected Company, but I think Collected Company as a whole is just too powerful of a card and a strategy.
Allow the deck to ignore other decks entirely.
Yeah. Right. And hopefully we don't have that with Kaladesh. And you can have more diversity, which brings people back to the game. And that's my hope. I definitely want to start building and start brewing with standard with the deck that I want to play. But it is sort of a limited set of cards that I want to play with. And if those cards aren't viable, then my interest in the actual format will decrease because I can't find my niche, as it were. I can't find what I want to be doing in the format, and I have other formats to play. When it breaks down to it. So, I don't think that you have to play every format as a player.
No, I don't think that's true. But I think I mentioned this only because we were discussing the decline in possible decline in event participation, and standard is the event that you see that void the most. Yeah. Because that's the one
the most pronounced.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. And it's the most common event. You know what I mean? So hopefully Kaladesh changes that. I hope that I know I rambled a lot in this conversation. I apologize. I have a lot of ideas on this, and I feel like I can also get frustrated at people, and that's probably not fair. So I don't know. I guess this is not the most concise I've ever been.
I think when it breaks down that when you take a look at a competitive Magic player, what do they want to do? They probably want to win. So
To complain.
So
Stop
people,
it, Mike.
people who aren't deck builders, because that is a certain subset of people. Not everyone is a brewer. Not everyone's a deck builder. A lot of people just know how to pilot decks. So what?
Dave actually just put a helmet and goggles on.
So what do people do? They flock towards decks that have been shown to be successful. So maybe there are pilots out there without a deck to play, and maybe that's just the case. So hopefully Kaladesh maybe brings those decks. Maybe those brewers come prepared and show off those decks so people can play them. But we'll see how it shakes down, and we'll see we'll just see what happens. I mean, hopefully we're not exchanging one overpowered card for another. Hopefully we're not exchanging a Collected Company for a Chandra. If you're going to be playing a red deck, you need her as, comparatively speaking, if you're going to be playing a green deck, a green creature deck, maybe more specifically, then you want Collected Company. So, I mean, I hope that's not the case. I hope that's not what's happening. And I don't think that it is. A lot of cards in Kaladesh are very exciting. And, we'll see. But, I think there's a lot of contributing factors to why player bases, expand and contract. And I think maybe locally and at large we're seeing a contraction, but I think, this fall I could see a lot of expansion and a lot of excitement happening around Magic the Gathering as a whole. So, and I hope our local player base, improves. I think the last thing I want to note on is timing of events is also very important, because I think a last few of the Comic Con Classics have been the first week of Standard. And card availability is very, very difficult to deal with. And I know that Comic Con has done their best to try to make sure that, they do have a lot of the new set on hand. But sometimes those cards are really expensive when the first, week is still around. And we really don't know what's going to be viable. So you could be paying $20 for a card that doesn't shake out. We've had cards in the recent history. Excuse me. We'll start with the P for some reason. That doesn't make any sense. The recent
Sounds
history.
like a dirty word.
Yeah, doesn't it? Like Narset. The card was like $50, and then
that doesn't sound like a dirty word.
And I think it is a big gamble when you're playing a Standard event week one, where you have to put a lot of investment in a bunch of cards that you are hoping are going to be good. So I think that's rough. So I think timing for Standard really has to be balanced as well. We have Indy coming up for Star City Games, and that's week one of new Standard. And while that is fun and exciting to be able to bring something untested and a little bit lose to a tournament, you could be just losing at that tournament, and more than just matches. You could be losing money, which is tough for a lot of people to swallow. So there's a lot of differing factors, and I don't think there's one solution or anything like that. But I have hope, as I think Mike and Dave also have hope. So I think it's a good note to close on.
I think the most amazing thing is Mike mentioned that we kind of differ in sometimes the style of decks we like to play, but somehow we came together on Death Shadow Zoo and Modern. I don't know how that happened.
That is the nexus point.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting. I think even I'm just going to keep rambling here. I don't tell you.
Yeah, it's something you could talk about. It's something you could talk about forever, but you can make your point.
So I'm going to refer to another article. I'm sending you on a scavenger hunt across.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of reading.
LSV had his final article as far as
tournament
report as a player, and he mentioned the playtesting that they did for Worlds that he said that Marshall got to watch and was really confused by how little playing was going on and how much arguing was happening instead. And he talked about how games are important, how people expect spreadsheets and that sort of thing, but really all they do is discuss points. They respect each other as players. Now, granted, they have a lot more experience than we do, but I think that's something that we've gotten to, where we don't always have a ton of time for in-game testing. I'm pretty much the only one who really slams games. We do a lot of just talking and arguing, that sort of Sean McLaren mental magic method. It's been good for us.
I do a lot of because I don't do a lot of playing, even play testing, But I'm like, what do you think about this card? Is this card any good? I don't know, maybe in this deck? And then I go, Mike, test this for me.
Get this down to the lab. So, but anyways, so sorry, Zeb, if we rambled off your point. We hope that people do come back for Kaladesh. But if you are questioning it, if you've been frustrated by the game, I personally encourage you to find out why you like the game again. Because Magic, in my opinion, still is the best game that's ever been created. And they're trying real hard to still make it awesome.
Yeah, they certainly are. So let's go to the wrap up. So over the weekend, we of course have the Star City Games Open. It's going to be in Orlando, and it's going to be modern. And we also have our Comic-Con events that we already talked about, the PPTQ on Saturday and the IQ on Sunday. So be sure to come to those if you are local to us. And then we also have the third and final WMCQ that's happening over the weekend. Those are happening across the world. The U.S. one is going to be in New York. So good luck to anyone competing in those tournaments. May you queue and be part of the next Worlds team. So I think that is pretty much everything for this week. So this is our 150th episode. It's pretty a decent milestone, a decent one. It's not 200, it's not 100, it's right in the middle. But we appreciate you guys so much being our listeners. We've had a lot of great interaction over the weekend with everyone, and it was very nice to see our community sort of come together. And we really wanted to reward our diehard fans, our listeners, and do a contest. We haven't done one of these in a while, and we felt it only right to do so for 150. And I imagine we'll probably do something for 200 as well. But that's a little bit more off in the future. So more details will come. And the only way to really find out about these is to, follow us on Twitter. So if you haven't already done so, please give us a follow. You can do a search for, technically it's your end step is what you're going to want to search for. But when you add us, it puts the little @ symbol on there. So it's at your end step. It's great. It's a magnificent Twitter handle. You can also, if you do a search for at your end step, it's our secondary Twitter account that we still have. So you can find us from there as well. So even if you mess it up, you'll still link back to us no matter what. But be sure you follow your at symbol, your end step account. So, and then once we are ready to solidify the details of what we're going to be giving away, we'll send out a tweet and kind of give you the whole details of what's actually going on. And we are very excited, and we want to hope for another 150 more plus of this lovely show that we do. We are not just co-hosts. We're best friends for the most part, and I can't think of a better way to send my Wednesday evening when it's 11:35 p.m. Eastern time, talking about Magic cards. But it's a good time, and it's been a heck of a journey, if I do say so myself. And going back, doing a throwback episode with some really terrible audio quality, really kind of brings you back to when we first started, when Dave was just a glint in me and Mike's eyes.
When I was when I was
Yeah, you might want to rephrase that. But
no,
when
I was you didn't exist yet.
When I was a mere guest, a call-in guest over Skype. Seriously, don't listen to those episodes.
First-time caller, long-time listener.
Like what? We've only been out for a week.
Answer.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that we killed Jordan though. That was weird. He had to go though. He had to go. No, just kidding. Jordan's not dead. I just want everyone. It was a joke. It was a jest. We saw him this weekend. He was fine.
I mean, the tombstone was nice.
You mean the pizza, right?